Hey guys, I wanted to check out the gaming performance for the iPad Mini Retina right here. You can see the games I'm going to play: GTA Vice City, Nova 3, Dead Trigger 2, Real Racing 3, Asphalt 8 and Mass Effect Infiltrator. So we've got some pretty graphically intense games here, so yeah, let's do it. So we're starting off with GTA Vice City, and I just wanted to show you here how quick it loads. It really is lightning speed. That's it. That's as long as it takes to load the game, and then you're straight in. So pretty impressive there. I couldn't find an FPS meter equivalent on iOS, so we can't actually kind of get an accurate reading of the FPS, so we're just going to have to do this by feel and by our eyes. Also, there isn't any graphical options in the iOS versions of the game, so it just comes with the settings that they think it can handle. If you look at the objects in the distance, you can see when they're drawing in, and they pretty much draw in at exactly the same point, so I'm pretty sure the draw distance isn't set to the maximum. In terms of the resolution, again, I can't tell you specifically, but it does look incredibly sharp on this display, so I'd be more inclined to think that it was at maximum resolution. In terms of the performance, we know the iPad Mini Retina comes with the A7 processor. It's actually clocked at the same rate as the iPhone 5S's A7 processor, but you have to take into account the iPad Mini Retina display is a lot higher resolution. It comes in at 2048 by 1536, so that is definitely going to take a toll in terms of the performance versus the iPhone 5S. While playing this game, I've got to say, it was pretty damn smooth. You can see here, while I'm kind of running around, there is a very slight jitter when the objects kind of go past in the background, but it's very slight. Other than that, the performance is really good, and GTA Vice City is always a really heavy game to play. It's always pretty intense. It needs a good CPU and a good GPU to actually play it smoothly, and yeah, this does it very, very well. It's not quite as smooth as when I tried it on the iPhone 5S, and I'm pretty sure it's not hitting 60 frames a second. You can definitely feel that sometimes the frame rate does drop, not dramatically, but it does drop little bits in some situations. Nonetheless, it's still one of the best experiences with GTA Vice City on a tablet that I've had. So moving on to Nova 3, and I've just brought my Nexus 7 2013 just to show you how quickly the iPad Mini can load games, and it really is quite a significant difference between these two. So we'll try and hit these at exactly the same time, and they are loading to exactly the same point in the game on both as well. So let's see what happens here. iPad Mini 2 is done, and now there's actually quite a long wait. And it's done, and that took an extra 26 seconds on the Nexus 7 2013. Now, Nova 3 is one of my favourite games to test on any new hardware. It's got fantastic graphics. I actually like the game as well, and it really does look beautiful. Now, coming up, you'll notice a few drop frames, and you can see it around here. There you go, you can see it. I don't know if you saw that, it's really quick. There's a slight judder in that beginning scene, so it's definitely not running at 60 FPS in that beginning scene, but it feels pretty smooth here. While actually playing the game and fighting enemies and shooting things, yeah, again, it felt really smooth. Playing on a bigger screen as well, especially with the resolution that this iPad Mini has, everything looks crystal clear, and it really is sharp. You have to see it in real life. The YouTube video really won't be doing it justice. It is pinpoint sharp, these games. It really makes a big difference, especially if you're used to playing on an iPhone 5S. In terms of the performance while playing games, it doesn't quite feel as fast as the iPhone 5S. Again, you can thank the resolution for that. Now, I can't give you a perfect reading for the FPS, but it felt like it was around the 40 to 50 range. I wouldn't say 60. When there was some enemies on the screen, you could notice the frame rate wasn't quite as smooth as when there's absolutely no enemies. So I wouldn't say it was absolutely 60, but still one of the best experiences I've had with Nova 3 on a tablet. Next up, we got Dead Trigger 2, and straight away you'll notice it is running the Ultra settings. If you have an Android counterpart, they will only be available officially, at least on the Tegra devices. These extra effects include things like the grass and the water on the floor. You can see that water puddle I'm just walking past right now. Those won't be there if you're not running the Ultra effects, and it really does add a little bit to the game. It just makes it look a ton better. Now, this is one of the newer games, so it probably has better optimization for the iPad Mini Retina, and it did feel very, very smooth. Now, again, I would say that when there was quite a few zombies on the screen, or there was quite a few effects going on, you wouldn't notice any major drop in the frame rate, but you'd definitely notice that it wasn't quite as smooth as when there wasn't quite as many effects going on, or maybe when there just wasn't as many zombies on the screen. Now, this next area that I was going into, I remember this being a little bit of a problem for my Nexus 5. It definitely slowed down on the Ultra effects, and you can definitely feel that here as well. It's not quite as smooth as the area I've just come from. It actually affects the controls a little bit, but it seems to be only this area, so I'm not sure if that's because of the effects on the floor, or it could just be a combination of a lot of effects going on and quite a lot of zombies on the screen as well. After killing the zombies and going back through that same problem area, it definitely felt like it was higher FPS. It could be due to the fact there wasn't as many zombies. It could also be the fact that maybe the game was doing some sort of loading in the background. Nonetheless, Dead Trigger is one of the new games here, so it has better graphics than most of the games. It still performs really well. It does have a few times where the frames do drop, but nothing drastic again. Next up, we got Real Racing 3, and in terms of the graphics level, I know we can't change them on iOS, but I do think it is running the maximum settings once again. That's thanks to a lot of things. One, it is good hardware in the iPad Mini Retina, and secondly, optimization, and this is a pretty big deal. Now, we know iOS devices don't have that many different hardware combinations, so it's a lot easier to develop and optimize games for a certain hardware set. When you talk about Android, it has loads of different combinations for hardware. That makes it difficult for game developers to actually optimize for specific hardware because it's a lot more work, and generally they just don't do it, and that's why a lot of Android devices don't get the highest graphics settings. Nonetheless, let's talk about Real Racing 3 on the iPad Mini. It felt fantastic, graphics looked pinpoint sharp, and I didn't notice any frame drops while playing it. Another racing game we got next, and that's Asphalt 8, and you can see a few little jitters in this kind of initial little introduction here, but let's actually see what happens when we play the game. This game I thought looked really amazing on the iPad Mini. I've never seen it look quite this good on my Android devices, so I'm pretty sure it is, again, playing at a higher graphics level. You can just see the particle effects between those two cars scraping together. That is really, really awesome, and there's just loads more stuff flying around the screen that I haven't noticed before while playing this on pretty much all my other devices, actually. If I remember correctly, when I tested this out on my Android devices that I can actually use FPS meter on, I noticed that it was capped at 30 frames per second. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that's what's going on here, but it could well be. Nonetheless, I didn't notice any absolute major frame drops. It didn't feel quite as smooth as it could be though either. Now, again, that could be thanks to that frame cap that we saw on Android, but you know, that's the way they chose to do it, and it is very smooth to play. There's nothing wrong with it. It could be smoother being a racing game. It's always nicer to have a smoother game when you're racing. But yeah, the iPad Mini didn't seem to have any issues rendering this game. Even when there was a lot of stuff going on the screen, it just plowed through it. So excellent performance here on Asphalt 8. And lastly here we got Mass Effect Infiltrator. Now this is a game I hadn't really played before, but I was actually really impressed. If you haven't played it before, I suggest going to get it. It is a paid game. It is available on both iOS and Android. It is quite a fun game to play, and it does have pretty awesome graphics. Now, it's by no means a fast-paced game, so the iPad Mini Retina just had no problems churning through the frames here. I didn't notice any slowdowns whatsoever, even when I was shooting a fair few enemies on the screen. So there you have it in terms of the iPad Mini Retina gaming performance. I've been really impressed with it. It's not quite as quick as I've been saying as my iPhone 5S, but that is all down to that resolution difference. The iPhone 5S is a Retina display, but it has nowhere near the resolution of the iPad Mini Retina. So, as always, resolution makes a massive difference when you're rendering games. But the iPad Mini 2 is an excellent gaming tablet. It's much better than the original iPad Mini, that's for sure. We'll have to see how it does against the Nexus 7 2013, but iOS devices are always hard to beat in terms of gaming, mainly due to optimization. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Peace out.